This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Is this Browns defense good enough to carry the load for a struggling offense, right? That's a question that we are asking ourselves now that the health of Deshaun Watson seems to be in question, as far as when he's going to play, if he's going to play this week, if he's going to play next week. We just don't have concrete answers to that. So a lot of questions have been raised to, hey, how good is this defense, and can this defense be good enough to carry this team through some tough times? Well, I have some interesting numbers to look at to make an argument for either way. When you go back in NFL history, you can go back and find one or two examples of a good defense that carried a team to a championship. I bet both of the Giants teams, they get brought up. The helmet catch year and the 2012 Mario Manningham year. You can go all the way back to Philadelphia in 2017 as a defense that was able to kind of carry what was a struggling offensive unit post Carson Wentz injury. You can even go back to obviously 2000, the Baltimore Ravens. You can even go back to 2012, even though not 2012, 2013 with the Baltimore Ravens when they won their last championship. I don't think that's the most honest example, because Joe Flacco was flat out the best player on that Ravens team at that time. Now, it didn't last long, but that was true. They weren't a bad offense, at least in the postseason. But that remains, hey, if you have a great defense and an offense, one, what do you need to be over 500 offensively? And two, what will that get you in the long run? And the sad truth is not much, right? If your offense is in the bottom 10 of the NFL, you're usually one of the worst teams in the NFL. No team in 2022 posted a above 500 record that had a bottom 10 offense. The team that came the closest, I think, was the Commanders, who did have a really good defense. They went 8-8-1, but no team last year posted a above 500 record. In 2021, you had three teams post above 500 records: the 2021 Saints, the 2021 Pittsburgh Steelers, the 2021 Miami Dolphins. Of those three teams, one of them made the playoffs. That is the 2021 Steelers. And I think all of those teams had 9 wins. The Dolphins were 9-8. The Saints were 9-8, and the Steelers were 9-7-1. Obviously, Steelers made the playoffs because they had less losses, got the tiebreaker because of the tie, ironically enough. Now, let's look at the other two teams, the Saints. When I say their offense wasn't good, I mean they had 3,437 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and they had a running attack that got 1,900 yards, well, almost 2,000 yards, and 12 touchdowns, 4.2 yards per carry. Big time throw percentage, 4.96. Turnover worthy play, 4.16. So they were a struggling offense. And let's say you live in a world where Deshaun, let's hope it doesn't happen, is out for the year. That's, I think, the best case scenario for the Browns offense is the 2021 Saints. They were a second-ranked defense. They did not make the playoffs in the NFC that year. 9-8. So it's tough. It's tough, right? If Deshaun does not play for the rest of the year, you're in trouble. The 2021 Steelers, they went 9-7-1. Had a passing attack that got 4,232 yards, 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 3.6. The big time throw percentage was 3.6. The turnover worthy play percentage was 5.36. So they weren't necessarily safe with the football. Quarterback play was terrible. They were able to get a ton of yards. Their running attack was awful, 1,600 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3.9 yards a carry. They still made the playoffs. And again, this is more aligned to, hey, if you don't have Deshaun Watson, this is what you can expect to be the best case scenario for your team is a single digit win season, 9-7-1. Maybe you make the playoffs, maybe you don't. I don't expect this conversation to continue if Deshaun Watson does continue to play. Right. And that's something I'll touch on later. But this is like, hey, let's say Deshaun misses 6 weeks and then you have to fill in the blanks with some other guys. And then maybe Deshaun comes back and misses a couple games. Like if his health is in question all year, this is probably where you're going to be looking at. The defense is going to be good enough that where you're going to be able to win games behind it, but the offense will not be able to capitalize on every opportunity, and you'll be a single digit, maybe above 500 team. The 2021 Dolphins, similar to 3,936 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 3% on big time throws, 5.2% on turnover worthy play. So not great quarterback play at all. And a rushing attack that had 1,568 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3.8 yards per carry. Not a good offense. Not a good offense, right? Then I think this is the example for like, hey, let's say Deshaun does come back. He plays most of the year, but he's just under expectations the whole year. This is what I think you can expect. That's the 2020 Steelers. That 2020 Steelers team, passing wise, they were terrible running the ball. Passing wise, 4,630, 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions within the whole group. 4.4 big time throw percentage, 3 turnover worthy play. And that's if I think Deshaun plays on the low end. Now, while we're all worried about this, is it premature? I don't know, to be honest with you, because I'm not encouraged by the lack of transparency that the team has been with this injury with Deshaun. If this were a simple, hey, he has a shoulder contusion, he's going to be out for 2 weeks, or he's going to be out for 3 weeks, we'll see what's happening here, but that's the diagnosis, that's what's happening. If that would have been the case and they announced that on Tuesday, I don't think I'm going to be this concerned. But the fact that we're sitting here and we have somewhat of a diagnosis, but it's only a diagnosis that we've gotten through reports, not necessarily an official statement from the team until very recently. And we'll see if that pops up on the injury report as they've said it should, because I'm not 100% convinced that that's the case. This stuff makes me concerned about like if they actually really have a good grasp on what's going on with them, because that's my big concern, is that nobody has a good grasp. That everybody's kind of making hypotheses and guesses, educated guesses there be it, but still guesses, and that nobody actually knows what the timetable is going to be. There's a great saying, I think a former coach says this all the time: if a player is going to miss a game, it doesn't bug you if you know that they're going to miss a game. But if you have to guess if a player is going to miss a game, that's a lot harder to build around. Case in point, look at what happened last year. When this team knew that they had to play with Jacoby Brissett for 11 weeks, they were able to scrounge up a decent enough offense. It wasn't great, but it was decent enough. Defense wasn't nearly where it needed to be, but the offense was good enough to, keep you relatively in the race. But when Deshaun came back and it was a lot more touch and go on what he could or could not do, that became a lot harder to adjust around. When you know what you got, it's a lot easier to figure that out. Look at Kyle Shanahan, the team that we played this week. He struggled to figure out how to get anything out of Trey Lance, who is an infinitely more talented quarterback than Brock Purdy as far as physical traits. He can throw the ball further. He can run further. He's taller. He's bigger. He's harder to tackle. All of those things. But he was more successful with Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo because ultimately for Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy are much more predictable than Trey Lance. So it's easier for him to create a game plan around what you can get away with those players. I don't think it's a mistake that the Cleveland Browns went to PJ Walker after that experience that they had with DTR, because the benefit that they felt like they had with DTR when they originally made him the backup was that they felt like he had a very predictable play style, that he was going to do the things that you would guess he would do, and that wouldn't be a problem. But when he got in there, the bullets started flying. It turned out that he was a rookie, right? Maybe you thought he wasn't going to look like a rookie, but he looked like a rookie. Okay, got to pivot. Now you're going to put in a veteran quarterback to be the backup quarterback this week. That makes sense because you feel like, hey, you know what to expect from PJ Walker. And if he has to go out there, you can throw something out there that you can work with the realm of expectations that you should have out there. It's a lot about just knowing what you have, knowing what you can get away with, and knowing what you cannot get away with. It's going to be harder when you don't have Nick Chubb, when you have these inconsistencies at quarterback. But this team has sucked with Nick Chubb. This team has won games with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb should not be the reason that you don't make the playoffs this year. And honestly, if you're this Cleveland Browns team, you had this defense playing at this level, there should be no reason why you shouldn't be competing for the playoffs at the end of the year, if not in the playoffs. I don't care who gets hurt on the offense. I don't care if Deshaun's there, if Deshaun's not there. This is a team that's good enough to make a playoff run. Now, that's not going to hit the spot just getting to the playoffs at 9-8. Maybe it does if Deshaun's like out for a significant portion of time and he gets to the playoffs, he starts playing well and you make a run and it's all about getting in there. Maybe that hits the spot. But however you slice it, whatever happens with this mysterious shoulder injury that Deshaun has, this team has to find a way, no matter what, to make the playoffs. There's no excuse not to make the playoffs. I don't care what happens. I don't care if you think the shoulder injury is going to make Deshaun play. I don't care. The expectation is that this is a team that should wiggle its way into the playoffs. If they cannot find a way to do that, heads are going to roll. Things are going to change. And maybe that's for the better. But at this point, they got to make it happen. Quarterback, no quarterback. And I know that's tough as hell, but hey, you got a really good defense. Quarterback, no quarterback. Wide receiver, no wide receiver. I don't care. They got to figure it out. Shoulder, no shoulder. They got to figure it out. Whether it be PJ Walker, whether it be DTR. And I'm not saying I expect this team to have the same expectations that I would expect them to have with the healthy Deshaun Watson, but they have to figure out a way to be a playoff team this year. That's the end all, be all, point blank, period. And then once you get in there, we'll see. Like maybe things change, maybe our luck turns around. But right now, it's October 11th, 2023. That's the Browns go. They got to figure out a way to scrounge up enough with what they got, what they may have, what they may not have to get to the playoffs. And right now, I would say offensively, especially when Deshaun's out there, you definitely have enough on this team to make the playoffs. Like, if I'm not even questioning whether you can make the playoffs with this offense and Deshaun Watson healthy, I think that's 100%, not 100%, but I think that's a very reasonable thing to expect, right? That you can make the playoffs with the healthy Deshaun Watson. The question is, what if this health is not guaranteed throughout the year? What if it's a bit more up and down? Do you still have enough? And the fact is, none of these teams that I brought up on this paper that were able to have, last week of the season playoff hopes, none of these teams rushed for over 2,000 yards. A lot of them didn't even rush for over 1,700 yards. So you don't need a dominant run game. Not a lot of these passing offenses were anywhere close to dominant. They were ultimately just competent on offense. And that's the question. In the absence of Deshaun Watson, you still have to be competent on offense. In the absence of Nick Chubb, you still have to be competent. Last week, I'll give it a mulligan. It was a weird week, right? You didn't know your quarterback was going to play. You weren't 100% sure why he wasn't playing. It wasn't clear. Now things are clear. Okay, cool. Mulligan, whatever. But you have to find a way to be competent on offense. If this team is competent on offense and Deshaun can't play for a little while, they will still make the playoffs. If this team is not competent on offense without Deshaun Watson, they won't. And they have enough to be competent. I don't want to hear that they don't. They really do. They have enough to be competent. What is David Njoku getting paid for? What is Amari Cooper getting paid for? What do we trade all that stuff for Elijah Moore? Hell, we paid all this money for the offensive line. We should be able to run the ball just a little bit. Like, there's not a real good excuse for this offense not to be competent. And through 4 weeks, we've seen 2 incompetent performances and 2 very competent performances against 2 good teams that I think are going to be in the playoff hunt. So to make a definitive statement either way, I would lean towards that they can be competent. The evidence points that way. So that's my point. If the Browns want to make the playoffs, if the defense has to carry the load for most of the season because there's an injury to the quarterback position, they have enough. They should be able to be competent. And if they can't, people are going to get fired. But you should be able to be competent. That's all we're asking from the offense if Deshaun's not out there. We don't need it to be great. We don't need it to put up 35 points. We just need it to be competent. If it can be competent, they will be fine. If it cannot be competent, we will be doing the same thing that we've done for the last 20 years next year. And it might be for the better. Maybe what this team needs is a change up at one of the coaching positions, whether it be offensive coordinator or head coach. Maybe it'll be for the better. But it won't feel great when it happens, if it happens. But that's what the Browns need this week. That's what they need for the rest of the season. I don't care if 4 is out there. I don't care if 4 is not. I don't care if 24 is out there. I don't care if 24 is not. He's not. Right? You got to find a way to be competent. You just have to. There's no excuse not to. You put too much money into this offense not to be able to be competent because your quarterback's down. You got to find a way to be competent because at the end of the day, Baltimore finds a way to be competent when Lamar Jackson's not out there. At the end of the day, Pittsburgh has found a way to be competent without Ben Roethlisberger out there for them. Cincinnati, a little bit of different story. We haven't really seen them that much without Joe Burrow, but still there's faith that they could be competent. But you look at these other teams. If it comes down to having to play a different quarterback, they have to. The teams that will make the playoffs and be good teams are the ones that figure out how to be competent, even if the quarterback can't play. Last week, again, Mulligan. This week, we'll see what's up. You got the bye week. You had 2 weeks to prepare, knowing that Deshaun's health will be in question for this game. Got to find a way to be competent. I don't care that they're really good. That's fine. You're really good. You should be really good. Got to find a way to be competent. Not asking you to tear down the San Francisco 49ers and beat them by 30, but I am asking for a competent offensive performance. That's it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good day.